Let's do another edition here of Goz on the Go. All the sports talk you need from the week in 30 minutes. If you ever got a question, you ever want to hop in, hear your opinion, have a back and forth with me, you and I just have this nice, intimate conversation. You can do it. G-O-Z, Goz, GozillaMedia.com. Tom Goz on Twitter, T-O-M-G-O-Z-Z, and Getting There with Goz on Instagram. Those are the ways you can connect with the show. Before we get into the topics of the week, I want to give love to our sponsors. Shout out to Mohawk Honda. The fall, Labor Day is not here officially, but we know that if you're looking for a new vehicle, the spot to do it in the capital region and all across upstate New York is Mohawk Honda. No matter where you're listening to this podcast, you might be looking to make that move this fall. It is worth the drive to Freeman's Bridge Road. If you drive into Mohawk Honda, send me a message on one of those social media sites. We'll all go out, we'll get lunch, we'll enjoy the day, and I can tell you about how great Mohawk Honda is as I look out and enjoy my pilot, the best vehicle I've ever had in my life. I worked with my guy, Cam McKenna. So if you're driving in, give the heads up. Hey, Goz was talking about you, Cam, on the podcast. How can you help me get in the new vehicle? Maybe you'll see my guy, Greg Johnson. Give him a shout out. I got to see him, say what's up. It's been too long. Those guys aren't too far away from me. But they want to find a vehicle that fits your price, your lifestyle, whatever you're looking for, they want to help you find it. If you're trading in your vehicle, they can help you do that too. Get the money in your pocket that you deserve. Mohawk Honda, stop in this fall where they always go out of their way to please you. And we got to give love to our friends over at Johnstone Supply in Troy. If you're looking to make a change in your home this fall, the place to do it is Johnstone Supply in Troy. He has become, it seems to be, the most popular guy on Gozilla Media this week. Him and my pal Levac about the fantasy draft, our guy Tom in there. If you see a guy with a little bit longer hair in the hat, you got the little swag to him, say what's up to my guy Tom. I'm actually going to grab lunch with him later today, probably when you're listening to this. Who knows? You might be at a very popular barbecue place when you're listening to this if you're driving around. 6th Avenue in Troy. I can give you a little hint of where we're going. Fujitsu ductless splits, energy-saving, ultra-low temperature models. J-Series now at Johnstone Supply in Troy. We're talking those VRF systems for even more efficiency and flexibility. We're talking about for you heating, AC, refrigeration, tools that you need in your home to make sure you've got the best lifestyle for yourself. Shout out to my guy George as well. Looking forward to having him tell some stories about his wild days in the boxing game this fall. We're talking about a family-owned and operated business, Johnstone Supply in Troy. Make sure to check him out. And now, on to this week's edition of Goz on the Go. We lead off talking about a New York baseball team, and this time it's not the New York Yankees. Instead, it's the New York Mets. The story involving Francisco Lindor and Javy Baez giving the thumbs down to the New York Mets fans. Yes, Javy Baez in the post-game press conference talked about how then his teammates, play poorly. They're booed by fans. So now when the Mets, play well, they're going to boo the fans. It's hard to even comprehend how dumb and how much of a lack of perspective this is from an actual professional athlete. Does Javy Baez not understand anything that goes on in professional sports? How in the world his paychecks are actually signed? How he's able to be a millionaire in his life? He has no... It just bothers me that professional athletes just expect that this is the lifestyle they earn, that they should be making millions of dollars, that the people who came before them did it, so they'll do it their way, and they're supposed to. If you have this attitude about Baez and Lindor and any other professional athlete that you use the term spoiled, and they get paid too much for what they do, well, it is a business, and they can provide the facts as to why they should have those type of salaries. But when you don't appreciate how you get it, I don't care what you do for a living, whether it's play baseball, run a business, do sales, teach, medical degree. What is happening? How do you not understand of how that ever comes together? I've never heard this happen before. I joked around on social media that this seems like a gimmick out of professional wrestling, where the bad guy was going to insult the fan base to draw boos. That's heel 101. The cheap, your town stinks, this is the armpit of the state. Like, that is classic professional wrestling. But Javy Baez and Francisco Lindor wanted to do it. Thank goodness somebody from the Mets, Sandy Alderson to Steve Cohen, knocked it off and told them, we stink, we suck, we blew the NL East. Atlanta's ahead of us, Philadelphia's ahead of us. This was supposed to be us. My guy Levesque told me he thinks Rojas should be out because of how bad the Mets collapsed. Jacob deGrom got hurt. That's a huge part of this. A pitcher who is dominating baseball and really had no impact here in the summer for the Mets. But Javy Baez's advisors, his agents, seriously, he may have lost anywhere between $60 and $80 million. I've heard some people estimate as high as $100 million he may have cost himself. Because what fan base wants to buy a Javy Baez jersey now? What fan base wants to root on this guy as their favorite player and to have them as a part of the lineup? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that marketing to come to their town. They want the average and the bats and the production. Oh, wait a second. Hang on. I mean, that's the old Javy Baez. Javier Baez stunk in Chicago this past spring. He's hitting below 220 at a clip. And the most recent stats I saw for Javy Baez for the New York Mets, he was hitting 210? I couldn't believe that. This is not the Javy Baez that you wanted. It had no impact. When you go through the wins and losses since Javy Baez has joined the Mets, they're a way below 500 team. So you're not providing the production you're supposed to. You're now booing the fans and your team sucks. But you have no perspective as to why? How? Completely lost. There are a few athletes. Look, there are athletes that make mistakes on the field, same dumb shit, do stuff off the field that they get arrested for. We can make a whole different podcast about that. But I'm truly struggling to find an athlete that has been this dumb to insult the fans and believe it was going to be embraced by the media. They're lucky it didn't get stopped after the first week. They had become so irrelevant. They had been doing this, Mets players, for 3 weeks before some reporter asked about it. One of the dumbest things I've ever actually seen an athlete do who was being serious is what Javy Baez just did for the Mets. Overall, it's going to be looked as a bad trade for the Mets because Baez is done in New York at the end of the season, a rental that didn't pay off, and he cost himself a lot of money for the upcoming free agency. The shocking news in the NFL this week, former MVP Cam Newton cut by the New England Patriots. We're talking about a guy who, I had a conversation with my boys from back home. Shout out to DJ, who's a big Panther fan. I said this. I said, that season, the 2015 Carolina Panthers that moved into that 2016 January-February spot is the most underrated NFL team in my lifetime. The last 30 years. And they are in the serious conversation as being the most underrated, underappreciated team in the history of the NFL. They entered that Super Bowl at 17-1. 17-1. And the one loss they suffered was to an Atlanta Falcon team in division who they had to play twice in less than a month time. Cam Newton, Josh Norman and company helps that team get back to a Super Bowl. The Panthers had been there before. They had a heartbreaking loss to the Patriots. They can't get it done. But Cam Newton's an MVP. You can never take that away from him, that he won an MVP. Now, how it ended in Carolina is not the way in which any athlete wants their career to end in any spot. He gets injured. He's not good enough. He loses his job. The franchise moves on. New England felt different. We also have to remember the perspective that people wondered where Cam Newton was going to end up. He finally ended up in New England after a one-year contract. And honestly, he wasn't great in 2020, but he was good before he caught COVID. He honestly, physically, never really looked like the same Cam Newton we were used to way back to his Heisman Trophy winning days at Auburn, his MVP days at Carolina. But New England decides they're going to bring back Cam Newton. They're going to draft a quarterback in the first round from Alabama, Mac Jones, who not too long ago, less than 3 years ago, was a third-string quarterback at Alabama and becomes a first-round draft pick. Why'd they cut him? Was it because Bill Belichik thought that was the best move for the franchise, like we're being talked about? Is it because Cam Newton's unvaccinated and he was going to have to follow different rules than other players on the team who are vaccinated? Did they believe that much in Mac Jones that they thought it could happen? We have to go back and look at the perspective. And this is going to sound like the hottest take I may have ever given in the history of Goss and the Co. But if you as a Patriot fan, for as great, for as legendary as Bill Belichik has been for this franchise, want to start to criticize Bill Belichik for some of his moves when it comes to actually being the GM, the decision maker, go right ahead. I love the stat about the Patriots involving first-round draft picks. Do you know since 2012, only one first-round draft pick by the Patriots got a second contract? How awful the draft picks have been. But most people give the Patriots a pass because they won. Go look at Belichick's record without Tom Brady. I know the 11-5 season's in there with Matt Castle, but do we forget about Cleveland? I know there's a documentary out there about that team on the rise, but do you think he was good? Do you think the Patriots were good last season? Where do you stack up the Patriots this season with a rookie quarterback? Belichick's decisions can be questioned. They've been glossed over because of how well Tom Brady and Randy Moss and players of the past helped those teams win. I don't understand this at all. Mac Jones had a really good season. It needs worth repeating there at Alabama. He didn't have a great career at Alabama. He had a really good 2020 COVID-adjusted season. And Mac Jones, in that 2020 Alabama season, his targets included the SEC leader in career touchdowns in Najee Harris, and arguably the greatest wide receiver in the history of college football. Oh, and a few first-round draft picks surrounding him to help him out on offense and defense. But those two in particular, Harris and Smith, are real stats. And now he's going to be able to run the New England Patriots? And you're going to dump an MVP? I don't get it. I look at New England now, and I would argue they're the third best team in the third best team in the AFC East, behind Buffalo and behind Miami. If Tua can piece it together, and Miami's been super aggressive from the draft to the offseason, I like the Dolphins. And by the way, they've got a former Patriot coach there with Flores. I like them to finish ahead of New England. I'm not positive New England can get over 500. So one of my bets I'm going to place this season, I don't believe the Patriots can get over 9 wins. I don't trust Mac Jones. I don't think the tight ends money they spent on so much money on Jonnu Smith and others at tight, I just don't understand it. New England's got to prove it to me. As for Cam Newton, this might be it for Cam. Where's he going to go? You could argue that maybe Bill Belichik gave him a break and didn't let him stick around longer because teams are getting down to their 53-man rosters, but no. Is he going to go to Denver? If you're a Bronco fan, don't you want Deshaun Watson first? Of course you do. If you're a Dolphin fan, we just brought up either with Tua or Watson. So if Watson doesn't move, what team really wants Cam Newton? I struggle. The one team that keeps jumping out to me is the Saints. If Sean Payton is that obsessed with Taysom Hill, can you make a true argument as to why Taysom Hill is better than Cam Newton? Or what Taysom Hill's role is going to be on the Saints is more effective and efficient than Cam Newton? I can't do that. Cam Newton's bigger and stronger, faster, and throws better. If he's Jameis Winston's backup, it makes far more sense than Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill, by the way, is not young. He's in his 30s. So if I had to pick a spot, I'd pick the Saints or Pittsburgh. Do you think Ben Roethlisberger is going to finish his season in Pittsburgh? How many years has Joshua Dobbs been the backup in Pittsburgh? They've had some horrendous players take the field. Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph, and half his helmet that Myles Garrett ripped off. Their backups have been horrendous. So if I told you where I think Cam Newton should end up, I would tell you Pittsburgh and New Orleans. And if it's not those two spots, I don't know if Cam Newton's going to have anything left. That might be it for Cam. MVP. Team almost won the Super Bowl. At one point in the mid-2010 decade, you could have discussed that the NFC South was with 3 of the 4 quarterbacks heading to the Hall of Fame. In Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, and Cam Newton's career was on that trajectory. I only give him 2 more spots. Under on the Patriots having success this season. Belichick's getting a pass. He's getting exposed without Brady. We'll see if Mac Jones exposes him. Cam Newton, 2 more spots, or that might be it for his career. Even though it's September, we've got some big news in the NBA, and something that just I struggle with understanding why people are so obsessed with this guy. Now, it's going to sound like a little bit of payback for my guys over at Sports with the Zenith team. My guys, Bryce and Taylor, made for Philly as well. Not we made Philly, as Bryce always busts our chops out. Made for Philly, who's on the bye week this week. These guys are going to roast me, and I'm fine going back and forth with it. I'm cool. I'll even come on Made for Philly. I don't get the Ben Simmons thing. I know a broadcaster back in the spring got roasted for saying how much he thought Ben Simmons was overrated and no good. I agree with him. I don't get how Ben Simmons now is demanding that it's time for him to find a new spot. Philadelphia doesn't work for him. For those who haven't been following the story, Wojo over at ESPN is reporting that Ben Simmons is seeking to trade out of Philadelphia and that his agent, you might know him from Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, LeBron James's buddy, is saying that they got to figure out the All-Stars' future. Why do people honestly think this guy's good? It goes way back to his days at LSU. I remember when Dick Vitale criticized him. Dick Vitale said he's got to play better when the games matter the most. Oh my God, you would have thought Baton Rouge was going to attack Dickie V. Dickie V getting in these battles with Coach Will way back then. Matt Moscona, one of my buddies down at 104.5 in Baton Rouge. Jordy Culotta. Go look at the Jordy Culotta Dick Vitale beef of how much there was back and forth between that whole program and Vitale. They hated him because they criticized Ben Simmons. So Ben Simmons gets to the NBA, and he's young. He's talented. He's the number one pick, 6'10" point guard, the big Aussie. He has not been good. Now, I know the Ben Simmons defender is going to tell me, and pun intended here, that he's a very good defender, that he's a 3-time All-Star, that he's a top 5 finisher in Defensive Player of the Year voting. That's what they're going to tell me about Ben Simmons, and they might go deeper in analytics. This is all I need. When it matters the most, he's not good. We've had athletes in the past. We can go back to Peyton Manning and Greg Norman and these athletes who people want. LeBron, can they get it done? Can they win the postseason? Can they? Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, 2 of those 3 guys did it. Peyton won. Greek Freak won. LeBron won. What makes you have any evidence that if Ben Simmons got traded to, let's say the New Orleans Pelicans, let's say they did a deal for that, Zion Williamson for Ben Simmons, that you think the Pelicans are going to be now a contender because of Ben Simmons? Does Rich Paul put Ben Simmons in the category of the next LeBron James? Why the hell would that even be the case? My favorite stat, I cannot believe this is true, but ESPN reports this. Ben Simmons did not attempt a field goal in the fourth quarter in games 4 through 7 of Philadelphia's series against the Atlanta Hawks. When the Sixers got knocked out by the Hawks, Hawks advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. What? He didn't put up a shot? He scored a combined total of 19 points in the final 3 games of the series. And Philadelphia and Rich Paul think that Ben Simmons, with 4 years and close to $150 million left on the contract, is a contract another team wants? Honestly, who? Memphis? Pair him up with John Morant? That doesn't make any sense. I already tossed off New Orleans. Who honestly would want Ben Simmons for what he's... Oh my God. Tell me why people think he's good. I would put him in the discussion as the most overrated right now. That's how bad he's been. And someone's trying to jump in my conversation. That almost seemed like a Philly person hopping in. No, stay out. Ben Simmons trying to get out of Philadelphia. Philly might be better without him. I wish Philly could pull a trade off and get Damian Lillard in there. You get Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid and see what they can do. Make that happen. I know Lonzo Ball's in Chicago, and maybe he's not the answer. He's got a lot to prove still. I mean, statistically, he's getting better. He actually can shoot. God, he used to be such a bad shooter early on in his career. He's getting better. He's improving. But this idea that Ben Simmons is going to change your franchise. Look, if there's even a comparison to Simmons of the last 10 to 15 years, I keep thinking about Kevin Love, and I don't think it's a great comparison because there was so much hype around Kevin Love in Minnesota that if he was in the right spot, what he could do for a team. But Kevin Love had a skill set. He was a rebounder. So you put Kyrie, who's an attacker. You put LeBron, who can do it all. You get a rebounder in Love. Like, that worked. Chris Bosh, when he was in Toronto, but Toronto was winning. They're probably in that same discussion there with Philly. But Bosh was a more skilled player than Ben Simmons. Someone could say physically Ben Simmons is better and bigger than Bosh, but Bosh produced when it mattered for the Miami Heat, even though he took the most criticism of anybody in that big three because people want to rip on LeBron and do Wade Wade's the golden boy in South Beach. Ben Simmons is not good. And Philly fan, you should embrace it if he's gone. He's had all these opportunities. I get that he's young. I know he's less than 25. But he's had these chances. I would never trade for Ben Simmons. But Sixer fan, you might be stuck with him. College football is here. We had week 0. I've been teasing it week after week for the podcast for the preview of what we got. If you want a full preview, word for word, on everything that I did for the college football season, now it's up. GozillaMedia.com. The ABCs of New York State college football is up. Preseason top 25 is up. We're going to talk about some bold predictions here and a little quick focus on the New York team. So we're going to give you some picks for the larger FBS level, some things I like, some things you want to wager on. We'll give you my picks at the end. But first, let's start with those two New York teams I really want to focus on. Syracuse Orange football, UAlbany Great Dane football. And maybe this is the reason why I waited so long on this. I want to be optimistic. I've been a part of the UAlbany on-field team in the past. I'm a season ticket holder for Syracuse football. But evaluating both programs, there is a real good chance that by the time mid-October hits, combined UAlbany football and Syracuse football could be 2-10. Just look at both teams' schedules. Depending on where you're wagering on the game, technically in New York you can't, but if you're listening outside of New York, Ohio Syracuse is a pick'em. I love the Bobcats. I picked the Bobcats to win the MAC, even though Frank Solich randomly retired in the summer, which I'm not going to update my thing, but that's okay. So it's a pick'em. Rutgers is going to be a favorite over Syracuse. UAlbany and Syracuse play each other, so somebody's going to get a win there. Syracuse is going to be a dog against Liberty, one of the biggest stories of the year, and more than likely going to be dogs on the road at Florida State. So Syracuse is likely going to go 2-4, 1-5 in that stretch. You flip it over to the Great Danes. They're on the road at North Dakota State. I don't have to tell you how good they are. Top 5 team in the FBS. Excuse me, I said FBS. I almost said that on purpose because they could beat FBS teams in the FCS. They get Rhode Island. That's always a tough opponent. That game's at home. That's a Saturday night kickoff. Then you get Syracuse, which the Orange, just skill set wise and talent wise, have better players, and the game's in the Carrier Dome, so you would think Syracuse would be the favorite in that game. So already 2 of the 3 games, UAlbany's a dog. Then they go after a bye week. So Coach Gattuso's got to get a squad ready. On the road at Delaware, on the road at William & Mary. That's brutal. You know those programs, William & Mary and Delaware, and the CAA is the toughest conference in all of the FCS level. But you piece that together. How are you getting 4 wins? Where? How? So you're telling me after 10 opponents, Syracuse and UAlbany football is likely going to be 2-10. Oh, I so badly want to pick UAlbany football and get back to the FCS playoffs, and I so badly want to find 6 wins on the Syracuse football schedule so they could go like the Fenway Park Bowl or the Pinstripe Bowl or something like that. I'm rooting for both of these teams. But if you told me that both teams, and maybe I'm being too optimistic here, get 4 wins this season, I would be really impressed. That hurts me too. The overall FBS, though, gets me excited. What else we can see across the board? Here are some of my big long shot picks. Like most of it, we got some chalk on there for sure. The long shots. Iowa State winning the Big 12. How about 20 starters back for Iowa State? And I think something fishy is going on in the Big 12 with the officiating. Oklahoma and Texas have already announced they're leaving. If you're a Big 12 member, you're going to be rooting for Oklahoma or Texas to do well this season? You think some calls are going to go against the Longhorns and Sooners say, oh, I thought you guys were leaving the conference. What is the benefit for me, a Big 12 official, a Big 12 athletic director, a Big 12 crowd, to have you guys do well? If someone else in our conference can beat you, then we look good for the future. And I think Iowa State's going to get a lot of calls in their favor this season. By the way, they also look pretty good in that Fiesta Bowl victory over Oregon last year. Breece Hall, one of the best running backs in the country. You know, I actually can say this because, I can't because the season's kicked off. I think you know the answer. Breece Hall is pretty good. Preseason, no, I'll say it. Screw it. Preseason, he would be number 1 on my Heisman list. Now, that'll change week to week, but Breece Hall would be number 1 on my list going into the preseason for the Heisman Trophy. So I've got Iowa State not just winning the Big 12, but getting to the college football playoff. Out on the West Coast, I love the UCLA Bruins. It's one of my favorite teams this season. The long shot out in the Big 12 is Iowa State. In the Pac-12 is UCLA. Chip Kelly finally has the players where he can actually recruit the guys, bring them in. They look so strong against Hawaii. We'll find out how big the Rainbow Warriors are actually going to play this season. They didn't look too good week one. But 10 starters back on offense and defense as well for UCLA, just like Iowa State. And how about this? All of their 4 losses last season by less than 6 points. Now, the Bruins have some big games coming up. You know they're going to be challenged when they play USC in that Rose Bowl battle, the double home uniforms. Here's what I would do, though. If I was Chip Kelly, I would bench Thompson Robinson Jr. He's not good. He's a nice athlete. He can make a throw here. And put in Chase Griffin. The kid has been talked about as a quarterback prodigy since he was 14 years old. Let him play. Put him on the field. If UCLA benches their quarterback and starts Chase Griffin, he could be the breakout star of the college football season. So those are my fun plays. UCLA, and I like Iowa State to make the college football playoff. If you want more of my picks, some long shots, my reasoning, some players to look out for, check it out, GozillaMedia.com. We are back to giving gambling picks. Let's go. Let's keep track this college football season. Toss some NFL ones in there as well. Maybe next week I'll give those preseason picks for you for the NFL. But 4 games to play this weekend. First, South Alabama versus Southern Miss. Line makes 0 cents. Last year, Southern Miss was a 13-point favorite against South Alabama in 2020 Week 1. South Alabama beat them by double digits. Yet Southern Miss is the favorite again this week. South Alabama money line victory over Southern Miss. Florida Atlantic versus Florida. 23.5. Give me the Owls. Question marks of who's going to play quarterback for the Gators after Kyle Trask graduates. You know the Florida Atlantic players are fired up to go up against Florida, a school they are all probably hoping to get recruited by but didn't end up there. Willie Taggart now the head coach for the Owls. But here's the stat I like. Since 2012, Florida Atlantic against the spread, road underdog. Their record, 26-10-1. Give me Florida Atlantic with the points. Penn State versus Wisconsin. A noon kickoff in the Big Ten in September, Week 1. Under 50.5. Wisconsin football, pound the rock, big offensive line, no-name running backs who become household names by November. Penn State, a lot of questions, so many moves with the offensive coordinators under James Franklin. I think the number's up to 7 offensive coordinators for James Franklin. You just can't keep having that much movement involving that program. Both teams are going to try to figure out exactly what the hell their offense is going to look like under 50.5 in a Big Ten noon game. And my lock of the week, roll damn Tide. Alabama is going to destroy Miami in this Week 1 matchup. 19.5 is not enough. I'm going to Rivers Casino. I'm playing this one up to 27.5. Alabama, I know that all the recruits of the past have left. It doesn't matter. They reload. I can tell you about the top player they have from this year class and that year class, and Mac Jones and Tua and Jalen Hurts, Bryce Young. There's going to be new household names this season for Alabama. And here's the worst kept secret in college football. Derek King, really nice player for the Houston Cougars, transferred to Miami, hurt himself in that bowl game against Oklahoma State, the quarterback for the Hurricanes, and Miami's getting better and better in comparison to the last 10 to 20 years. Except those runs with Ken Dorsey. Maybe not as good as 2001, but you know what I mean. Here's what people don't understand about Derek King. He can't throw. He cannot throw the football. Here were his stats combined last season when they played the 2 best teams in the ACC on their schedule, Clemson and North Carolina. King's stats combined, 30 of 58, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and combined on average in those games, his team lost by 30 points. Go through his numbers last season. Miami didn't play anybody. His best performance, no doubts, against NC State. Played really well in that game. Almost 22% of his touchdowns in the 2020 season came in one game. It was against NC State. King can't throw. So you can't have a quarterback that's not throwing the football, You have Alabama, who has a great defense under Nick Saban. You've got a quarterback that wants to prove he's worth $1 million in endorsements. This is never going to be close. I take that back. Miami and Manny Diaz might be able to figure out some defensive formations. Manny Diaz is good, might throw off some guys who are getting on the field for the first time. So I won't go that. Maybe it'll be a 2-touchdown, 10-point game in the first half. But talent and Nick Saban take over. Blowout city, Alabama, roll damn tide because King can't throw the football. They torch Miami in week 1. Those are my picks. Guys on the go. Don't forget, download, subscribe, rate, and review. And hopefully you're going to enjoy Levac and Gaz, a little Friday edition coming for you tomorrow. Or maybe today. Or however you listen to this. Enjoy Levac and Gaz too. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you make some cash. College football is back. Talk to you next week.